Okay, this is the UK, Canada, and South Africa, turn 8. UK Pacific has 17 IPCs to spend. They're going to buy an infantry, 2 mechanized infantry, and a tank. UK Atlantic has 23 IPCs to spend. They're going to buy 2 artillery and 4 infantry. South Africa has 8 IPCs to spend. They're going to save all 8. Canada has 11 IPCs to spend. They're going to spend 9 on a tank and an infantry, and they're going to save 2 for the next turn. There are several attacks that are being declared, so let's go through what they are. First off, the Canadian destroyer in C-Zone 109 is going to go after the submarine in C-Zone 110. The Canadian infantry in the United Kingdom is going to load up on the transport. The transport's going to go 123 to 126 through the submarine, ignoring it, and land in Norway. The British are going to load up 3 infantry and an artillery onto their transports, and they're going to land in Normandy, Bordeaux. In the Med, the Canadian transport is going to load up the infantry from Sardinia. The British transport is going to load up the mechanized infantry from Sicily. And the South African transport is going to load up the mechanized infantry from Tobruk. And they're all going to make a landing in northern Italy. That attack will be supported by the battleship and the 2 cruisers. All of the forces in Yugoslavia, with the exception of 1 infantry, will also go into this attack. So we have a tank, an infantry, and an artillery. The remaining infantry in Yugoslavia will take Greater Southern Germany. I think that's the attacks. So we'll see where we go from there. Okay, let's start rolling some dice. The attack on C-Zone 112, the Canadian destroyer, the HMCS Huron, is going up against the German submarine U-74. The Germans have decided to scramble their fighter from the Western Germany air base. So we have a 2, and that's a miss, versus a 1 and a 4. And those are misses, so the Canadians are going to get a second chance to sink that sub. Miss. Uh-oh. That's a hit. So the Canadians are unsuccessful in clearing that sea zone, and they lose their destroyer. Okay, this is the amphibious assault on Normandy, Bordeaux. The British are coming in with the HMS Invicta with an infantry and an artillery, and the HMS St. Helier with 2 infantry. So we have 2 2s and 2 1s. 2 hits. Only needed 1. Germans defend with a tank and miss. So the British take the territory with no casualties. Okay, for the amphibious assault on northern Italy, the Canadians are coming in with the HMCS Prince Henry with 1 infantry on board. The British are coming in with the HMS Stalker with 1 mechanized infantry aboard. The South Africans are coming in with the SS Orbita with 1 mechanized infantry aboard. From land, we have an infantry and an artillery and a tank. And then there are offshore shots from the HMS Ajax from the Med Fleet, and from the Far East Fleet, the HMS Argonaut cruiser, and the HMS Duke of York battleship. Now the Italians are defending with a mech, an artillery, a tank, and an infantry. Now the infantry is in a bunker, so that means 2 things. 1, it defends at +1, so instead of a 2, it defends at a 3, and the offshore shots from the ships do not instantly eliminate these guys. They will get defenses. They still get hit, but they get to fire back. So let's do the offshore shots. A 4 and 2 3s. and that's 2 hits. So we will remove these 2 guys, but they still get to fire back. So we have a tank, an infantry supported by an artillery, and then 2 unsupported mechs and an unsupported regular infantry. No hits. Okay. Two hits, so we'll lose the Canadian infantry. We'll lose the South African infantry, and we will pump up the South African mechanized infantry. So we'll lose 2 ones. Okay. So that's what's left. 1 hit. So the infantry is killed. Okay, we'll lose the British mech. No hits. Jeez Louise. Hit. So we'll lose the mech. There we go. Hit. So the territory will be taken, but they lose an artillery, so they take the territory with only 1 tank remaining. Okay. So the territory is taken, and by the way, the pillbox gets destroyed. Okay, non-combat. 2 infantry in Quebec are going to pop onto this transport and go to C-Zone 109 and offload in the UK. The transport that was already in C-Zone 109 is going to come back to C-Zone 106 in preparation for another load next turn. The strategic bomber in Romania is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and end up back in the United Kingdom. The destroyer and the carrier in 95 are going to go to 97. The transport in 97 is going to go to 98. The South African mechanized infantry in Belgian Congo is going to go to Egypt. And the South African transport in C-Zone 72 is going to go to C-Zone 71. In the Pacific, we do have some movement here. The 2 mech infantries and the tank from India are going to go to Yunnan. The mech that's already in Yunnan is going to go to Kwangtung. The 2 infantry, artillery, and AA gun in Hunan are going to go to Kiangsi. The British artillery and the Canadian infantry from Shan State are going to go to French Indochina. And the British infantry from Shan State and the British artillery from Burma are going to get on the transport and they're going to go to Sumatra. And the tactical bomber in Borneo is going to make its way to Kwangtung. So tidy up the board. Be back in a second with placement and money. Okay, Canadian placements, tank infantry in Quebec. British placements, 4 infantry, 1 artillery in the UK. And then down in the Egyptian factory, 1 infantry, 1 artillery. South Africa has nothing. India. We'll place our 2 mechs and a tank and our infantry. Okay. Nothing changes on the Pacific side of the board in terms of money, but on the Atlantic side of the board, Norway is now Canadian, and that's taken away from the Finns. Normandy Bordeaux is now British, and that's taken away from the Germans. And Northern Italy and Greater Southern Germany are now Italian, and that's half German and half Italian. Canadians up 3 from 11 to 14. And that means Finns down 3 from 8 to 5. South Africans up 8 to 17. And that's down 4 from the Italians, which are 11 to 7. And 4 from the Germans, which are 30 to 26. And then UK up to 25. And Germans down to 24. So I think that's all of the territories that were conquered. Okay, so money. The Brits get 17 IPCs for their Pacific holdings and 25 IPCs for their Atlantic holdings. The South Africans get 17 IPCs plus the 8 that they saved last time, so they're going to get 25 IPCs. Wow. So South Africa has 25 IPCs to spend next turn. I suspect they'll be purchasing a factory. The Canadians have 14 plus 2, so that's 16 IPCs to spend next turn. Okay, disposition of forces. Canadian forces around the board. Here we go. Infantry tank in Quebec, transport in 106, transport in 109, 2 infantry in the UK. Transport in 126, 2 infantry in Norway. In C-Zone 97, there is a transport, but no units to go with it because they all got killed. In French Indochina, there is a Canadian infantry. And that is the extent of the Canadians around the board. South Africans. In northern Italy, we have a tank. In C-Zone 97, there's a transport. In Egypt, there's a mechanized infantry. And then all the way down there in South Africa, there's an infantry and a tank. And in C-Zone 71, there is a transport. Brits around the board. In UK, they have 4 infantry and 1 artillery, plus a strategic bomber. In C-Zone 110, there are 2 transports. In Normandy, Bordeaux, there are 3 infantry and 1 artillery. In C-Zone 97, there is a transport, 2 cruisers, a destroyer, a battleship, and a carrier with 1 fighter on board. In Malta, there is an anti-aircraft. In C-Zone 98, there's a transport. In Egypt, there is an infantry and an artillery, along, of course, with a pillbox. And then moving on to the Pacific side, in India, we have an infantry, 2 mechs, and a tank. In Yunnan, 2 mechs and a tank. In French Indochina, an artillery. In Sumatra, an infantry and an artillery. In C-Zone 41, a transport. In Kwangtung, 2 mechs, a tank, an AA gun, a fighter, an attack bomber, along, of course, with 2 Australian visitors. In Kiangsi, 2 infantry, 1 artillery, 1 AA, along with, of course, Chinese units in the area as well. So that's the disposition of the British, Canadian, and South African forces around the board. The Anzac, Dutch, and French are up next. Okay, one last thing before the end of the turn. The Canadians in Norway are going to try and use the spy to turn Sweden into a pro-allied neutral. So remember, they have to get a 5 or a 6. 5. So Sweden is now a pro-allied neutral. Okay, so that's going to be a difference maker in the game, I think.